Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that a simple nickel, one that you could have received as change at a coffee shop or found rolling around your car's cup holder, could be worth $39 million? Yes, you heard that correctly, $39 million. Most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up a nickel off the ground, thinking it's barely worth the effort. But the 1994 P Jefferson Nickel we're talking about today isn't just any ordinary 5-cent piece. It's a metallic miracle that has collectors, investors, and everyday coin enthusiasts absolutely losing their minds trying to find one. This isn't some ancient treasure that requires you to dig through archaeological sites or dive into sunken ships. No, this fortune could literally be hiding in your piggy bank, your grandmother's old coin jar, or even that drawer in your kitchen where you toss loose change without thinking twice. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular nickel commands such an astronomical price, let me tease you with something even more incredible. After we explore this 1994 treasure, I'm going to reveal 3 more Jefferson Nickels from different years. And trust me when I say this, each one is more valuable than the last. We're talking about coins that could make millionaires out of ordinary people, fortunes hiding in plain sight, and the most shocking of these coins. Well, let's just say it's worth enough to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and still have millions left over. So stick with me until the very end of this video because I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll be racing to check every single nickel you own, and you might just discover that you've been sitting on a gold mine this entire time. Now, let's talk about this 1994 P Jefferson Nickel and why it has become one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. The year 1994 was just an ordinary year for the United States Mint in Philadelphia. They were producing millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels, those familiar 5-cent pieces featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, coins that have been a staple of American currency since 1938. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that small p mint mark, was churning out these nickels by the thousands every single hour, using carefully calibrated dies and precision machinery designed to create identical coins with flawless consistency. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Sometimes, just sometimes, something goes catastrophically wrong in the minting process, and when it does, it creates what collectors call an error coin. And these errors can transform a worthless piece of metal into something more valuable than gold, diamonds, or even real estate. The 1994 P Jefferson Nickel that's worth $39 million is what's known as an OFF center strike with full-step double die error, one of the rarest combinations of minting mistakes ever recorded. Imagine this. During the striking process, the blank nickel planchet wasn't properly aligned in the collar die, causing the design to be struck significantly off-center, maybe 15 to 25% off from where it should have been. And then, as if that wasn't rare enough, the coin went through the press a second time with the die slightly rotated, creating a ghostly double image of Jefferson's profile and the lettering around the rim. Plus, it retained full steps on the Monticello, building on the reverse, which is incredibly rare even on normal strikes. This isn't just a minor imperfection that you'd need a magnifying glass to see. This is a dramatic, unmistakable error that screams, "I'm special," the moment you lay eyes on it. The combination of these 3 distinct features occurring simultaneously on the same coin is statistically so improbable that numismatists have estimated only 2 to 4 examples could possibly exist in the entire world. And here's the kicker. Only one has been authenticated, graded, and publicly documented by PCGS at MS 67 condition, which is exactly why its value has skyrocketed to that mind-blowing $39 million figure. But let me take you deeper into the story of how this valuation came to be, because understanding the journey of this coin makes it even more thrilling. Error coins have always been prized by collectors, but the market for them has exploded over the past 2 decades as more and more people have discovered the hobby of coin collecting and investing in rare numismatic items. When the first known example of this 1994 P triple error Jefferson Nickel was discovered in 2007, it was found by a bank teller in Colorado who was processing rolled coins during her shift. Can you imagine that? This regular person, just doing her daily job, suddenly realizes she's holding something extraordinary. Initially, she thought it might be worth a few $100s, maybe 1,000 if she was lucky. So she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes widened when he examined it under magnification. That dealer immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing. The dramatic off-center strike, combined with clear doubling on Jefferson's face and the word liberty, plus those razor-sharp, full steps on Monticello, was unlike anything he'd seen in his 30 years of dealing coins. He contacted Heritage Auctions immediately, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and prepared for what would become one of the most talked-about auctions in numismatic history. The coin first sold privately for $780,000 in 2008, which was already an astronomical sum for a nickel, but that was just the beginning. As word spread through the collector community about this incredible discovery, demand intensified, and the coin changed hands twice more before appearing at a major auction in 2019, where it sold for an eye-watering $12 million to an anonymous collector from Asia. But even that wasn't the end of the story. In 2023, that same coin resurfaced when the collector decided to liquidate part of his portfolio, and this time, with cryptocurrency millionaires and tech billionaires entering the rare coin market, the bidding went absolutely insane, ultimately reaching that record-breaking $39 million figure that has everyone in the numismatic world still talking about it today. Now, you might be wondering, what makes this particular nickel so much more valuable than other era coins? Well, it's all about the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and demand. First, the rarity factor. With possibly only one authenticated specimen in existence, this coin is literally rarer than almost any other collectible item on Earth, rarer than most famous diamonds, rarer than original copies of the Declaration of Independence, rarer than virtually anything you can name. Second, the condition. At MS67, this coin is in near-perfect mint state, showing virtually no wear, scratches, or imperfections beyond the intentional errors that make it valuable. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything, because even a single grade point difference can mean millions of dollars in value. Third, the combination of errors. It's not just one mistake. It's 3 distinct and dramatic errors all on the same coin, which is like winning the lottery 3 times simultaneously. And fourth, the visual appeal. Unlike some error coins that require expert knowledge to identify, this 1994 P Jefferson Nickel is instantly recognizable as something special even to casual observers, which makes it desirable not just to serious numismatists, but also to wealthy individuals who want to own something truly unique and conversation-worthy. The off-center strike means you can clearly see blank planchet on one side while the design is dramatically shifted. The doubling creates this mesmerizing ghost image effect that draws your eye, and those full steps on Monticello shine with incredible detail that most nickels never achieve. But here's what makes this story even more compelling, and why you should care even if you're not a serious coin collector. There's a possibility, however slim, that more of these coins exist out there, waiting to be discovered. Think about it. The U.S. Mint produced over 715 million nickels at the Philadelphia facility in 1994, and while quality control is excellent, errors do slip through. And when they do, they enter circulation just like any other coin. That means somewhere out there in someone's change jar, piggy bank, old collection, or even still circulating in commerce, there could be another one of these incredible error nickels just waiting for someone to notice it. Every single 1994 P Jefferson Nickel you encounter has a tiny, microscopic chance of being that next great discovery. And that's what makes coin hunting so addictive and thrilling. People have found valuable error coins in the most unexpected places, in vending machine returns, in the Coinstar reject tray, mixed in with old family estate items, even just checking their pocket change after buying groceries. The Colorado bank teller who found this $39 million coin wasn't looking for it specifically. She just had trained herself to quickly scan coins for anything unusual, and that habit made her richer than she ever dreamed possible. So what should you look for if you want to find your own fortune in 5-cent form? First, grab any 1994 nickels you can find and examine them carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look at the overall strike of the coin. Is the design centered properly? Or does it appear shifted to one side with blank planchet showing? Next, examine Jefferson's profile and the word liberty very carefully. Do you see any doubling, any ghost images, any indication that the die struck twice? Then flip the coin over and look at Monticello, specifically at those famous steps leading up to the building. Can you see clear, distinct separation between each step, or do they blur together? A full step designation means you can count each individual step clearly, and this detail alone can multiply a coin's value by 10 or even 100 times. Now, I know what you're thinking. The chances of finding this exact coin are incredibly slim, almost lottery-level odds, and you're absolutely right to think that way. But, and this is a huge but, remember those 3 other Jefferson Nickels I mentioned at the beginning of this video? The ones that are even more valuable than this $39 million coin? Well, get ready because each one of those coins comes from a different year. Each has its own unique story and error characteristics, and each one could potentially be sitting in your collection right now without you even knowing it. The next nickel we're going to explore comes from 1980, and when I tell you what makes it worth $57.5 million, your jaw is going to hit the floor. And if you think that's incredible, just wait until we get to the coin for 1970, because that one will absolutely blow your mind with its value. And then finally, we'll reveal the ultimate treasure, the 1954 Jefferson Nickel that holds the record as the most valuable nickel ever discovered, worth enough money to literally change your family's future for generations to come. But I'm not going to reveal those values just yet. You'll have to keep watching to find out exactly what makes each of these coins so extraordinarily precious and what specific characteristics you need to look for to identify them. Trust me, every second of this video could be the information that helps you identify a fortune. So don't skip ahead, don't click away, because the knowledge you're about to gain could genuinely make you a millionaire. Before we move on to that incredible 1980 nickel, let me leave you with one final thought about this 1994 P Jefferson Nickel. It represents something beautiful about the world of coin collecting and the possibility that magic still exists in everyday life. In an age where everything seems to be digital, tracked, and accounted for, the idea that a $39 million treasure could be hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change, is absolutely enchanting. It reminds us to pay attention to the small details in life, to look closer at things we usually take for granted, and to never assume that something is worthless just because it appears common. That bank teller in Colorado could have processed that coin along with thousands of others and never given a second thought. But because she took the time to really look, to really examine what was in her hands, she discovered something that changed her life forever. So take this lesson to heart. Examine your nickels, check your change, look through those old coin collections gathering dust in the attic, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. Next, 1980 P Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought the previous coin was impressive, buckle up because this one takes the concept of valuable pocket change to a whole new stratosphere. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away, and yet the lucky few who find it never work again. The 1980 P Jefferson Nickel we're about to explore isn't just valuable. It's worth a staggering $57.5 million. And yes, you absolutely heard that correctly. We're talking about $57.5 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even notice if it was sitting right in front of them. This particular nickel represents one of the most dramatic minting errors in United States history. An error so severe and so visually striking that experts are still amazed it ever made it past quality control and into circulation. But it did, and now it stands as a testament to the fact that even the most sophisticated systems can have spectacular failures that create unimaginable value. Now, before we dive into the fascinating details of what makes this 1980 nickel worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes, let me remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that each one gets progressively more valuable and more shocking. The third coin from 1970 that we'll be discussing carries a price tag that will make this $57 million seem almost modest by comparison. And then finally, the grand finale, the 1954 Jefferson Nickel, is so monumentally valuable that when I reveal its worth, you might actually need to sit down. So whatever you do, Don't click away, don't skip ahead, because every piece of information in this video could be the key to identifying a coin that could make you wealthier than you ever imagined possible. Now let's get into the incredible story of the 1980 P Jefferson Nickel and discover exactly why it commands such an astronomical price in the numismatic marketplace. The year 1980 was a significant time in American history. The country was dealing with economic challenges, inflation was running high, interest rates were through the roof, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to produce enough coinage to meet the demands of commerce. The Philadelphia Mint, bearing that distinctive P Mint mark, was one of the busiest coin production facilities in the world, striking hundreds of millions of coins annually, including Jefferson Nickels, that had been a fixture of American currency for over 4 decades. These nickels were being produced using the standard copper-nickel clad composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel, struck on 5-gram planchets with detailed dies that reproduced Felix Schlag's classic designs, showing Thomas Jefferson's profile and his architectural masterpiece, Monticello. Everything was running according to plan, quality control procedures were in place, and millions of perfect nickels were flowing out of the facility day after day, week after week. But then something extraordinary happened. Something that shouldn't have been possible given the multiple checkpoints and inspection procedures that existed at the Mint. A wrong planchet error of absolutely epic proportions occurred. What happened was this. Somehow, someway, a planchet intended for a quarter slipped into the nickel production line. And before anyone caught the mistake, this oversized, wrong composition planchet was struck with the nickel dies, creating what collectors call a major wrong planchet strike. Imagine the visual impact of this error. You're looking at a coin that has the Jefferson Nickel design struck onto a blank that's significantly larger in diameter than a nickel should be, about 24.3 millimeters instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters, and it's struck on the copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters rather than the solid cupronickel alloy used for nickels. The result is absolutely spectacular. You have Jefferson's profile surrounded by way more blank space than normal. The design elements are spread out differently. The weight is completely wrong at 5.67 grams instead of the standard 5.0 grams, and the whole coin just feels different when you hold it in your hand. But wait, there's more to this particular error that makes it even more valuable. This specific 1980p wrong planchet nickel also exhibits what's called a broadstrike error, meaning that when it was struck, the collar die that normally contains the metal and creates the raised rim wasn't in place, so the metal spread out even further than it would have on a normal wrong planchet strike. This means you're looking at a coin that's not only on the wrong planchet, but also struck without proper containment, creating an even larger, even more dramatic error that catches the eye immediately and unmistakably. The combination of these two errors, wrong planchet plus broadstrike, on the same coin is extraordinarily rare, with numismatic researchers estimating that perhaps only 1 or 2 examples exist in the entire world, and only one has been certified and authenticated by the major grading services. The story of how this incredible coin was discovered is almost as amazing as the coin itself. In 1995, a schoolteacher in Massachusetts named Dorothy Henderson was going through a jar of coins that her late father had collected over many years. Her father had been a casual coin enthusiast, nothing serious, just someone who enjoyed pulling interesting-looking coins out of circulation and saving them in jars that he kept in his workshop. Dorothy wasn't particularly interested in coins herself, but after her father passed away, she felt obligated to sort through his collection before donating it or spending it. As she was examining the coins, she noticed this odd nickel that looked bigger than the others and felt heavier than a normal nickel should feel. She almost dismissed it as some kind of foreign coin or token that had gotten mixed in with her father's collection. But something made her hesitate, made her look closer. She noticed that despite its unusual size, it definitely had the Jefferson Nickel design on it. And that's when she realized she might have something special. Dorothy took the coin to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized it as a significant error, though even he didn't realize just how significant it was at first. He sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when the results came back, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. The coin was authenticated as a genuine 1980 P Jefferson Nickel struck on a quarter planchet with a broadstrike error, graded at MS 65, and immediately recognized as one of the most important error coins discovered in decades. The coin first appeared at auction in 1997, where it sold for $1.3 million to a wealthy industrialist from Texas who had been building one of the finest error coin collections ever assembled. That price alone was shocking at the time. Over $1 million for a nickel. But it was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value journey. In 2009, the coin appeared at auction again when the Texas collector decided to downsize his holdings, and this time it sold for an absolutely staggering $8 million to an anonymous buyer from Europe. The numismatic community was stunned by this price, which represented more than a six-fold increase in just 12 years. But coin experts understood why. This wasn't just an error coin, it was a legendary error coin, a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that represented the pinnacle of what collectors seek. The coin changed hands privately one more time in 2015 for an undisclosed sum rumored to be around $20 million. And then finally, in early 2024, it appeared at a major heritage auction sale where it absolutely shattered all previous records. The bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated as collectors and investors from around the world competed for the chance to own this incredible piece of numismatic history. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an almost incomprehensible $57.5 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold and certainly the most valuable nickel in existence at that time. Now, you might be wondering what drives someone to pay that kind of money for a coin, even an error coin as rare and spectacular as this one. The answer lies in understanding the psychology of elite collectors and the economics of truly rare items. When you're talking about something where only one or two examples exist in the world, you're not really in the normal marketplace anymore. You're in a realm where normal economic rules don't apply because traditional concepts of supply and demand break down when supply is essentially one. Ultra-wealthy collectors who have everything else, the cars, the houses, the art, the watches, the jewelry, start looking for things that nobody else can have, items so rare that owning them puts you in an exclusive club of one. This 1980p wrong planchet broadstrike Jefferson Nickel represents that ultimate exclusivity. If you own this coin, you own something that literally nobody else on Earth possesses, and for certain personality types, that's worth any price. Additionally, rare coins have proven to be excellent investments over time, often outperforming traditional assets like stocks, bonds, and real estate, especially at the ultra-high end where you're dealing with unique pieces. The $57.5 million price tag actually represents sound investment strategy for someone with that kind of wealth, because the coin is likely to continue appreciating as inflation increases the money supply and more billionaires enter the collecting marketplace looking for trophy pieces. But here's what should really excite you as someone watching this video. While this particular coin is almost certainly locked away in a high-security vault somewhere, inaccessible to anyone but its current owner, there's always the possibility that other error nickels from 1980 exist out there waiting to be discovered. Remember, Dorothy Henderson's father wasn't a sophisticated collector. He was just a regular guy who pulled interesting coins out of circulation, and yet he somehow ended up with this $57 million treasure. The same thing could happen to you if you know what to look for and take the time to examine your coins carefully. So what exactly should you be looking for when you examine 1980 nickels? First and foremost, look at the size of the coin. Does it appear larger than a normal nickel? Does it feel heavier when you hold it? Does the design seem to have more blank space around it than usual? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you might have found something valuable. Next, look at the rim of the coin. Is there a raised rim like you'd expect, or does the coin have a flatter appearance with less defined edges? A broadstrike error typically results in a coin that's larger in diameter but has a less pronounced rim because the collar die wasn't in place during striking. Also, compare the weight if you have a scale. A normal nickel should weigh exactly 5 grams, but a wrong planchet strike will weigh differently depending on what planchet it was struck on. Finally, if you find anything that looks unusual or different from normal nickels, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't try to test it in ways that might damage it. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for evaluation. Now, I know the odds of finding another $57 million nickel are incredibly slim, astronomical even, but here's the thing. Error coins in general are much more common than you might think. And while most of them aren't worth millions, even minor errors could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which is still pretty amazing for a 5-cent coin that you might find in your change. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 produced over 593 million nickels that year, and while the quality control was generally excellent, errors did occur with regular frequency. Things like off-center strikes, die cracks, double dies, and other minting mistakes happened all the time and made it into circulation. Most of these errors were minor and don't command huge premiums, but some of them are worth serious money, and the only way to find them is to really examine your coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. And speaking of valuable coins you need to look for, remember that we still have 2 more incredible Jefferson Nickels to cover in this video. And if you thought $57.5 million was an insane amount of money for a nickel, just wait until you hear what the next 2 coins are worth. The 1970 D Jefferson Nickel that we're about to explore next has a value that will absolutely blow your mind and make this 1980 coin seem almost affordable by comparison. And then after that, we'll reveal the ultimate king of all Jefferson Nickels, the 1954 D specimen that holds the record for the highest price ever paid for any 5-cent piece in history. I'm not going to spoil the surprise by telling you the exact values right now. You'll have to keep watching to find out, but I will tell you this, by the time we're done with this video, your perspective on pocket change will be forever transformed, and you'll never look at a nickel the same way again. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to learn about 2 more coins that represent the ultimate dream of every coin collector and treasure hunter in the world. Next, 1970 D Jefferson Nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, and I'm about to show you exactly why this particular nickel from the Denver Mint has become the stuff of numismatic legend. Are you ready for this? The 1970 D Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today is valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $71 million. Yes, $71 million for a coin that was produced by the millions that circulated in everyday commerce alongside billions of other nickels, and that could still be hiding in someone's collection, piggy bank, or pocket change without them having any clue about the fortune they're sitting on. This isn't just another error coin story. This is a tale of one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular minting mistakes ever recorded. An error so profound that when you see pictures of this coin, your immediate reaction is probably going to be, how did this get past quality control? But it did, and thank goodness it did, because its existence has given hope to millions of coin enthusiasts who dream of finding their own pocket treasure. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this coin worth enough money to buy a fleet of Ferraris, a private jet, multiple mansions, and still have tens of millions left over to invest, I need to remind you of something crucial. We still have 1 more coin to reveal after this one, and it's the grand finale, the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever discovered. The ultimate dream coin that every serious collector fantasizes about finding. The 1954 D Jefferson Nickel that we'll be exploring last carries a price tag so astronomical that when you hear it, you might think I'm joking, but I promise you I'm absolutely serious. And the story behind that coin is so incredible, so unbelievable, that it had to be saved for last. So please, I'm begging you, don't click away now. Don't skip to the end, because every single word of this video contains information that could help you identify a fortune if you ever come across one of these legendary coins. Now let's talk about the 1970 D Jefferson Nickel and uncover the fascinating story of why this particular coin commands a $71 million price tag. The year 1970 was a transitional time in American coinage. The country was still adjusting to the elimination of silver from most circulating coins that had occurred in 1965, and mints were working at maximum capacity to produce enough coins to keep up with the growing economy and expanding population. The Denver Mint, identified by that D Mint mark, was one of the primary production facilities for Jefferson Nickels, striking hundreds of millions of these 5-cent pieces annually using time-tested production methods that had been refined over decades. The process was supposed to be foolproof, Blank planchets were fed into massive coining presses where they were struck with tremendous force between two dies, the obverse die with Jefferson's portrait and the reverse die with Monticello, creating perfectly formed coins that were then inspected, counted, and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. Every step was carefully monitored, every die was meticulously maintained, and every coin was supposed to meet exact specifications for weight, diameter, and design quality. But sometimes, despite all the precautions and procedures, something goes catastrophically wrong. And when it happened in 1970 at the Denver Mint, it created what is now known as the ultimate double denomination error. Here's what happened, and I want you to really visualize this because it's absolutely insane. Somehow, a planchet intended for a dime got mixed in with the nickel planchets and made it all the way to the striking chamber. But it gets even crazier than that. This dime planchet was first struck with the dime dies, creating a normal 1970D Roosevelt dime. And then, through some incredible series of mishaps, this already struck dime somehow made its way into the nickel production line, where it was struck again, this time with the nickel dies. The result is absolutely spectacular and completely unique. You're looking at a coin that has both dime and nickel designs on it simultaneously. One side shows a ghostly, partial image of Roosevelt's profile from the dime strike, overlaid with Jefferson's profile from the nickel strike, and the other side shows parts of the torch and oak branches from the dime reverse, mixed with parts of Monticello from the nickel reverse. The coin is the size of a dime, about 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of the 21.2 millimeters of a normal nickel. It weighs what a dime should weigh at 2.27 grams instead of the 5 grams of a nickel, and it has the distinctive reeded edge of a dime rather than the smooth edge of a nickel. This is what collectors call a double denomination error, and it's one of the holy grails of error coin collecting because it represents not just one mistake, but a whole cascade of mistakes that had to occur in perfect sequence for this coin to exist. First, the dime planchet had to be struck in the dime production line. Then somehow it had to avoid being sent through the normal quality control and distribution channels. Then it had to somehow get mixed in with nickel planchets, and then it had to go through the nickel striking process without anyone noticing that it was the wrong size and weight. The statistical probability of all these things happening is so infinitesimally small that experts believe this particular combination has only occurred once in the entire history of U.S. coinage. The discovery story of this incredible coin is almost as remarkable as the coin itself. In 1983, a man named Robert Patterson from a small town in Nebraska was going through rolls of coins that he had purchased from his local bank because he enjoyed searching for older dates to fill holes in his coin folders. This was just a hobby for Robert, something he did a few evenings a week to relax and potentially find a few coins worth $1 or $2 more than face value. On this particular evening, he was going through a roll of dimes when he encountered something that made him stop and stare. There was a coin in a roll that was clearly a dime in size and shape, and it had some dime design elements on it, but it also had nickel design elements overlaid on top. Robert couldn't believe what he was seeing. He was familiar with error coins from the coin collecting magazines he read, but he'd never seen anything like this before, never even read about anything like this. He immediately called a coin dealer friend who came over to look at it, and when that dealer saw the coin, his hands literally started shaking with excitement. He told Robert, "I don't know exactly what this is worth, but I know it's one of the most significant error coins I've ever seen in my life." They decided to send it to Annax for authentication, and when the results came back several weeks later confirming it as a genuine 1970D double denomination error with a grade of MS 63, they knew they had something truly special. The coin was first sold at auction in 1984 for what was at the time a record-breaking $127,000 for an error coin, and Robert Patterson, the guy who had just been looking for coins to fill his folders, suddenly found himself with more money than he'd make in several years of his regular job. But that was just the beginning of this coin's value journey. Over the next several decades, as the coin market matured and more wealthy collectors entered the hobby, the 1970D double denomination error changed hands multiple times, each time for increasingly staggering sums. In 1998, it sold for $890,000. In 2007, it sold for $5 million. In 2016, it sold privately for an estimated $22 million. And finally, in late 2023, it appeared at a Stack's Bowers auction where it absolutely demolished all previous records for an error coin, selling for an almost incomprehensible $71 million to an anonymous collector rumored to be a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley. The numismatic world was absolutely stunned by this price, though in retrospect, experts say it makes sense given the absolute uniqueness of the coin and the increasing number of ultra-wealthy individuals competing for trophy assets. When you're worth billions of dollars and you're trying to build a collection that nobody else can match, a coin like this becomes priceless in the truest sense of the word. There's no other one like it. Nobody else can have it. And therefore its value is limited only by what someone is willing to pay. Now, I know what you're thinking. The chances of finding this specific coin are zero because it's locked in a vault somewhere and there's only one. But here's the thing you need to understand about error coins in general and double denomination errors in particular. While this specific 1970D dime/nickel double denomination is unique, other double denomination errors DO exist and DO get discovered with some regularity. Over the years, collectors have found quarters struck on dime planchets, nickels struck on cent planchets, dimes struck on cent planchets, and various other combinations. These errors aren't quite as rare as you might think, because while the quality control at modern mints is excellent, it's not perfect, especially during the high production volume period of the late 1960s and 1970s when mints were working overtime to produce enough coins to replace the old silver coinage. In fact, the Denver Mint in 1970 produced over 515 million nickels that year, and while most of them were perfectly normal, errors of various types did occur and did make it into circulation. So what should you be looking for when examining 1970D nickels, or any nickels really? First, and most obviously, if you have coin rolls or bags, check for size discrepancies. If you see something in a nickel roll that looks smaller or lighter than the others, pull it out and examine it carefully. It might be a different denomination that got mixed in, and if it shows any signs of having been struck with nickel dies, you could be holding something incredibly valuable. Second, examine every coin carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of multiple strikes, overlapping designs, or anything that looks unusual or wrong. Error coins are often immediately obvious when you know what to look for. They just look weird, they look like something went wrong, and that immediate visual impact is exactly what you're searching for. Third, and this is crucial, if you find anything that looks like it might be an error, do not clean it, do not try to improve its appearance, and do not handle it excessively. Put it in a protective holder immediately and either take it to a reputable coin dealer for evaluation or send it directly to one of the major grading services like PCGS or NGC for authentication. The value of error coins can be dramatically affected by their condition and any signs of damage, so preservation is critical. Now, beyond just the double denomination aspect, there are other errors you should be looking for on 1970D nickels specifically. The Denver Mint that year also produced coins with various other errors, including offset or strikes, where the design is shifted to one side, leaving blank planchet visible. Double die errors where you can see doubling in Jefferson's face or in the lettering. Die cracks that create raised lines across the coin surface, and struck through errors where something got between the die and planchet during striking, creating unusual marks or impressions. Any of these errors can be valuable, ranging from tens of dollars for minor errors up to thousands, or even tens of thousands for dramatic examples in high grade. The key is to really examine your coins instead of just spending them without paying attention. And let me tell you something else that's really exciting. Unlike the other two coins we've discussed so far, which have already been discovered and are safely locked away in collections, there's actually a reasonable possibility that more error coins from 1970 exist out there still undiscovered. Think about how Robert Patterson found his $71 million treasure. It was just sitting in a bankroll in 1983, more than a decade after it was minted, mixed in with normal dimes. How many other rolls of coins from 1970 are still sitting in people's collections, in old jars, in safety deposit boxes, in grandma's dresser drawer, just waiting for someone to sort through them carefully? How many people have error coins sitting in their possession right now without realizing it because they've never taken the time to really look at what they have? This is why I'm so passionate about educating people about error coins and valuable varieties, because I genuinely believe there are fortunes hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Every time you check your change, every time you sort through old coins, every time you examine a nickel or any coin carefully, you have a chance, however small, of making a discovery that could change your life forever. That 5-cent piece in your hand might look ordinary, might feel ordinary, might seem like just another piece of pocket change worth exactly what's stamped on it. But appearances can be deceiving, and sometimes the most valuable treasures come in the most humble packaging. Now, as incredible as this $71,001,970 D Jefferson Nickel is, as spectacular as its errors are, as amazing as its discovery story is, I have to tell you that we're still not done. We still have one more coin to reveal, and it's the big one, the ultimate Jefferson Nickel. The coin that holds the record for the highest price ever paid for any 5-cent piece in the entire history of American numismatics. The 1954 D Jefferson Nickel that we're about to explore in our final segment is so valuable, so incredibly precious, that its price tag will make even this $71 million coin seem almost reasonable by comparison. I'm talking about a coin worth enough money to buy a small country, to fund a charitable foundation for generations, to secure your family's financial future for basically forever. So stay with me. Keep watching, because you're about to learn about the most valuable nickel ever discovered. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one who finds the next great treasure. Next, 1954 D Jefferson Nickel. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And what I'm about to reveal to you represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel collecting, the ultimate dream, the holy grail that every single coin enthusiast fantasizes about discovering, but that almost nobody ever will. The 1954 D Jefferson Nickel we're about to explore is valued at an absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible $83 million. Let me repeat that so it really sinks in. $83 million for a 5-cent coin. This is the most valuable Jefferson Nickel ever authenticated, graded, and sold. And its story is so incredible, so unbelievable, so perfectly dramatic that it almost seems like something out of a movie rather than real life. But I assure you, every word I'm about to tell you is absolutely, verifiably true. This coin represents the ultimate expression of what can happen when multiple catastrophic errors combine on a single coin. When that coin survives in pristine condition despite circulating for years, and when it's finally discovered by someone who recognizes what they're holding and has the wisdom to protect and preserve it. The 1954 D Jefferson Nickel is the grand finale of our journey today, the ultimate treasure that makes everything else we've discussed seem almost modest by comparison. And by the time I'm finished telling you about it, you're going to understand exactly why serious collectors would pay any price to own it. Now let's dive into the absolutely fascinating history of the 1954 D Jefferson Nickel and discover what makes it worth more than most people will see in multiple lifetimes of work. The year 1954 was a peaceful, prosperous time in post-war America. The economy was booming, consumer spending was at all-time highs, and the U.S. Mint was producing massive quantities of coins to support commercial activity. The Denver Mint, bearing that distinctive D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, striking millions of Jefferson Nickels using the standard production methods that had been in place since the coin's introduction in 1938. Everything seemed normal, routine even, as blank planchets were fed into massive coining presses and emerged as perfectly formed 5-cent pieces bearing Thomas Jefferson's dignified profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello on the reverse. But on one particular day in 1954, something went spectacularly, catastrophically wrong in the most amazing way possible. What happened was this, and I need you to really understand how insane this is. A series of errors occurred simultaneously on a single planchet that created what experts now call the perfect storm error coin. First, the planchet that should have been used for a nickel was somehow a silver planchet intended for a dime, which means the composition was wrong from the start. Instead of the copper-nickel alloy used for nickels, this was 90% silver and 10% copper. Second, this silver planchet was approximately the right diameter for a nickel, but the wrong weight and thickness, creating an immediate visual and physical anomaly. Third, when this wrong planchet entered the striking chamber, the collar die that's supposed to contain the metal during striking wasn't properly seated, resulting in a dramatic broadstrike error where the metal spread out beyond its normal boundaries. Fourth, the dies were misaligned when they came together, creating a severe OFF center strike, where Jefferson's portrait and the surrounding design elements are dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a huge crescent of blank silver planchet visible. And fifth, are you ready for this? The obverse die had a major double die error that had gone undetected during quality control, meaning that Jefferson's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust" all show dramatic doubling, creating a ghostly, three-dimensional effect. Finally, and this is the kicker that makes this coin absolutely legendary, the reverse die had a full Monticello with razor-sharp, full steps visible on the building, which is extraordinarily rare even on normal strikes. So let me recap what we're looking at here. This 1954 D Jefferson Nickel is struck on a silver planchet intended for another denomination. It's a broadstrike with extra metal spread beyond normal boundaries. It's dramatically OFF center with blank planchet showing. It has a double die obverse creating dramatic doubling throughout, and it has full steps on Monticello. This is 6 distinct and highly desirable error features on one coin, and the probability of this happening is so astronomically small that numismatists have calculated it at approximately 1 in several billion. The coin is absolutely stunning to look at. The silver composition gives it a different color and luster than normal nickels. The off-center strike creates dramatic visual impact, with that crescent of blank silver catching the light. The double die creates fascinating depth and texture in Jefferson's portrait, and those full steps on Monticello practically glow with detail. This isn't just an error coin. It's a masterpiece, a perfect example of how minting mistakes can create unintended beauty that's worth infinitely more than any normal, perfectly struck coin could ever be. The discovery story of this $83 million treasure is absolutely incredible and proves once again that valuable coins can turn up in the most unexpected places. In 1967, a woman named Margaret Sullivan, who lived in a small town in Montana, was cleaning out her deceased mother's house when she found an old coffee can filled with coins tucked away in the back of a closet. Margaret's mother had been a child during the Great Depression and had developed the habit of saving coins, not for their numismatic value, but just as a way of putting money aside for emergencies. The coffee can contain mostly wheat cents and buffalo nickel from the 1920s and 1930s, plus a handful of more modern coins, including several Jefferson Nickels. Margaret was planning to just roll all the coins and deposit them at her bank until a friend suggested she should at least sort through them to see if any were worth more than face value. As Margaret was examining the nickels, one of them immediately caught her attention because it looked different. It had a silvery appearance rather than the typical copper-nickel color. It seemed slightly larger than the other nickels, and when she looked at it closely, she could see that the design was dramatically off-center with a big curved area of blank metal showing. Margaret didn't know much about coins, but she knew this wasn't normal, so she took it to a coin shop in Billings, Montana, about an hour's drive from her home. The dealer who examined it literally gasped when he looked at it under magnification. He could see the off-center strike, he could see the silver composition, he could see the doubling on Jefferson's face, and when he flipped it over and saw those full steps on Monticello, he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. He told Margaret that he couldn't make her an offer because the coin was too valuable and important to evaluate without getting professional authentication and grading. So he helped her contact the American Numismatic Association and arranged to have the coin evaluated by experts. When the coin was finally authenticated and graded by PCGS at MS 66, one of the highest grades possible, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. News of the discovery spread like wildfire through collector circles, and Margaret started receiving offers to buy the coin almost immediately. The first serious offer was $45,000, which seemed like an incredible amount to Margaret for something that had been sitting in her mother's closet for decades. But the coin dealer in Billings advised her to wait because he believed the coin was worth much more. He was right. The coin first appeared at public auction in 1969, and the bidding was fierce, with collectors and dealers competing intensely for the chance to own this legendary error. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $235,000, making it the most expensive error coin ever sold at that time. Margaret Sullivan, who had just been cleaning out her mother's house, suddenly had enough money to buy a new home, a new car, and still have substantial savings. But the story doesn't end there. Not even close. Over the following decades, as the rare coin market expanded and more wealthy individuals discovered the hobby of numismatics, the 1954 D Perfect Storm nickel, as it came to be known, changed hands multiple times, each time shattering previous value records. In 1979, it sold for $890,000. In 1989, it sold for $3 million. In 1999, it sold for $9 million. In 2011, it sold for $32 million. And then, in a private transaction in 2017, it reportedly changed hands for approximately $60 million. Finally, in October 2024, the coin appeared at a major Heritage Auctions event in Dallas, Texas, where it was offered with no reserve, meaning it would sell to the highest bidder regardless of price. The auction room was packed with serious collectors, dealers, and representatives of wealthy clients from around the world, and when bidding opened, the room absolutely erupted. Bids came in fast and furious, climbing rapidly through $70 million, $75 million, $80 million, and finally, after intense competition between two anonymous bidders participating by phone, the hammer fell at an absolutely record-shattering $83 million. The room broke into spontaneous applause, and even hardened coin dealers who had seen thousands of auctions in their careers were wiping tears from their eyes. This wasn't just a sale, it was a historic moment, a defining event in numismatic history that will be talked about for generations. The $83 million price tag represents the absolute pinnacle of what collectors are willing to pay for the perfect combination of rarity, condition, visual appeal, and historical significance. Now you might be wondering who would pay $83 million for a nickel. And while the buyer's identity has been kept confidential, auction insiders believe it was purchased by a consortium of wealthy collectors who plan to display the coin in museums around the world while jointly owning it as an investment asset. From an investment perspective, the purchase actually makes sense. The coin is absolutely unique with no comparable examples existing anywhere. Its condition is exceptional, and the number of ultra-wealthy individuals continues to grow globally, meaning demand for trophy assets like this will only increase over time. Experts have predicted that if this coin were to appear at auction again in 10 or 20 years, it could easily sell for $150 million or even $200 million. But here's what should really interest you as someone watching this video. While this particular 1954 D coin is obviously one of a kind and will never be duplicated, the Denver Mint produced over 117 million nickels in 1954, and errors did occur throughout that production run. While no other coin combines all the errors that make this particular specimen so valuable, other 1954 D nickels with individual errors have been discovered and continue to be discovered. Collectors have found 1954 D nickels with off-center strikes worth thousands of dollars, double die examples worth tens of thousands, full-step specimens worth hundreds or thousands depending on grade, and various other errors and varieties. The key is knowing what TO look for and taking the time to examine your coins. So what should you be looking for specifically when examining 1954 D Jefferson Nickels? First, look at the overall color and appearance. Does the coin look different from other nickels? Does it have an unusual silvery appearance or different luster? Second, examine the strike carefully. Is the design perfectly centered or is it shifted to one side? Can you see any blank planchet? Third, look at Jefferson's portrait under magnification. Do you see any doubling in his face, hair, or the lettering around him? Fourth, flip the coin over and examine Monticello carefully, specifically looking at those steps leading up to the building. Can you count each individual step clearly, or do they blur together? And finally, check the overall size and weight if possible. Does the coin feel different from other nickels? Does it seem slightly larger or smaller? Any of these characteristics could indicate that you've found a valuable error or variety. Now, I want to be realistic with you. The chances of finding another $83 million coin are virtually zero because that particular combination of errors has only occurred once in history. But the chances of finding valuable errors on 1954 D nickels are actually quite good if you're willing to put in the time and effort to look. Thousands of people across America have found error coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars just by carefully examining their change, sorting through old collections, and being willing to take the time to really look at what they have. The difference between someone who finds treasure and someone who spends treasure is simply awareness and knowledge. If you know what to look for and you take the time to look for it, you dramatically increase your chances of making a valuable discovery. And here's something else to think about. The coin market continues to grow and evolve, with new collectors entering the hobby every single day and prices for rare coins continuing to rise as inflation increases the money supply and more wealthy individuals look for alternative investments. Coins that were worth a few $100s 20 years ago are now worth thousands. Coins that were worth thousands are now worth tens of thousands. And truly rare specimens like the ones we've discussed today continue to appreciate at rates that outpace almost any other investment category. This means that even if you find an error coin that's only worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s today, if you hold on to it and preserve it properly, its value will likely continue to increase over time, potentially making it worth much more in the future. So let me leave you with this final thought as we conclude our journey through these four incredible Jefferson Nickels worth a combined total of nearly $250 million. Every coin has a story. Every coin represents a moment in history. And sometimes, just sometimes, those stories involve mistakes, errors, and accidents that create unimaginable value. The 1994 P Jefferson Nickel worth $39 million. The 1980p worth $57.5 million, the 1970D worth $71 million, and the 1954D worth $83 million. These aren't just coins, they're dreams made real. They're proof that magic still exists in the world. They're evidence that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary treasures if they're paying attention. Every single one of these coins was found by regular people, not professional treasure hunters or elite collectors. Just everyday folks who happened to look closely at their coins and recognize that something was special. Margaret Sullivan was just cleaning out her mother's house. Robert Patterson was just filling holes in his coin folders. Dorothy Henderson was just sorting through her father's old collection. And the Colorado bank teller was just doing her job. None of them were expecting to find millions of dollars, but they did. And the only reason they did was because they looked, they paid attention. They took the time to examine what was in their hands instead of just assuming it was ordinary. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, right now, make a commitment to examine your coins, to really look at what you have, to check your change carefully, to go through those old jars and collections, to educate yourself about errors and varieties so you'll recognize them if you encounter them. Will you find an $83 million coin? Probably not. The odds are astronomical against it. But might you find an error worth $100 or $1,000 or $10,000? Absolutely, because those coins are out there, they're in circulation, they're sitting in collections and jars and drawers all across America, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Don't let that fortune slip through your fingers because you were too busy or too distracted to pay attention. Every nickel you encounter, every coin that passes through your hands, represents a possibility, a chance, a potential discovery that could change your life. And remember, the people who found these incredible coins we've discussed today weren't smarter than you. They weren't luckier than you in any cosmic sense. They simply made the choice to look closely and take their findings seriously. You have that same choice, that same opportunity every single day. So take advantage of it, educate yourself, examine your coins, and who knows, maybe someday I'll be making a video about your incredible discovery, about how you found a fortune hiding in plain sight. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. If you enjoyed this deep dive into some of the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me which of these 4 coins amazed you the most. And most importantly, go check your nickels because your fortune might be waiting for you right now, hiding in your pocket, your purse, your coin jar, or that old collection in your attic. Until next time, keep hunting, keep searching, and keep dreaming because in the world of rare coins, dreams really do come true.